Greetings to you this day. This is Michelle Strickland, and I'm coming to you today with my daily theology lesson. It's my daily meditation that I do for myself. I record it and I release it because maybe somebody else out there can get something out of it. It just so happens that I love God and I love theology, and I want to become a better principled person. Choose God this day. The bad guys, they sin. The good guys, we sin. We all sin. It's whom you serve. You don't have to be perfect. No one is. But that doesn't mean that you don't have to deal with your consequences, good or bad. None of us get away from that, you know. You don't have to be perfect. No one is. No one. And love yourself. Because if you love yourself, if nobody else loves you, if you love yourself, you'll be okay. And never give up on yourself. Never. If you lost everything you have, if you have yourself, you have everything. You can always rebuild. For those of you just tuning in, I focus out of 3 major religious texts: the Bible, the Quran, and I'm in an introductory Buddhist text called The Shape of Suffering. And it deals with dependent co-arising. Without no this, there's no that. And everything that we say and do has an effect on our senses, good or bad. I try to rotate the text at least twice a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on how I'm led to meditate each day. We're back in the rotation for The Shape of Suffering. We're moving right along with this. I'll be starting, eventually we're gonna have another book to read. That's an introductory Buddhist text. But we're moving along in all the texts. But anyway, so I'm back in The Shape of Suffering. And I only read a little bit of it. And as I mentioned before, these are my lessons that I do for myself. I'm just recording them. So I'm learning, And if anybody has anything they want to add to enlighten all of us as we, go on this journey together, feel free to comment, because I'm learning and I want to hear people's perception and ideas and understanding about whatever these texts are I'm reading. Okay, that's what this whole thing is about. I'm just putting myself out there. Just maybe it'll help somebody. I do this for myself. And those other videos that I make, the smile challenge, the you matter, the love and peace and stuff like that, those are like, I mean that, but they're exercises, to create positivity and encouragement. And the affirmations that I leave, those are affirmations. I only modify it a little bit, I take the I out of it because I say my affirmation, but then I repeat it and say you or whatever. So whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to give back in the best way that I can give back. And that's of my time right now, as much as I can. But I don't always, I gotta, I'm doing other stuff too, so I have to divide my time up now, now that I'm getting a little bit more into some of the other things that I'm doing. But I'm gonna be as visible as I possibly can. And I just hope that, people can get something out of this, because I'm doing this from my heart, because I really care about people. And this is my way to try to give back. If I can just, encourage, a few people here and there, I'm okay with that, because it's better than no one. At least I'm out here trying to make the world better, I'm not giving up on this world. I'm not. I refuse to. As long as I'm living, I'm going to try to continue to encourage people to be their best they can be. Does that mean we're going to? No, it doesn't. But I digress. Anyway, so I'm only going to read a little bit out of this. The most succinct expression of these ideas is stated in, now you have to forgive me for these names, because these are my first time seeing these names and these words, and I know I'm not saying them correctly. So just have mercy and pity on me for massacring these names. I'm not doing it on purpose, okay? And I might have to look at it for a second. Okay, let me try this again. The most succinct expression of these ideas is stated in Taittiriya Upanishad, a passage that bears comparing with the passage from KHP4 quoted above. From food indeed are produced those creatures that dwell on earth. Furthermore, solely through food do they live, and they also into it they pass at the end. Because food is sometimes equated with Brahman and sometimes with the self, the pattern of this image parallels the larger pattern of most sorry, this word, I got to look at it again. Upon the side thought that the self comes from Brahman, eventually returns to Brahman, and is sustained by Brahman in the interim. In fact, this larger pattern may derive from the more concrete experience of food and feeding as depicted in this passage. You know, I'm not going to go back for those of you just tuning in. I consider this, I'm getting something out of it, but I'm also learning. And so my understanding is expanding. But what the Buddhist texts kind of remind me of, like mind exercise, you know, and psychology and sociology, you know. If you've had those courses, it's kind of similar to that, but then it encompasses God. You know, it brings it in. That's how I kind of look at it. But I also look at it as a mind exercise because it takes you back and forth in your thinking, you know. Although the Buddha drew on the image of feeding to illustrate his teachings, he made a number of changes on the theme. The most important was that he called into question the desirability of engaging in the act of feeding for eternity. He agreed that the attainment of an ultimate happiness was the ultimate goal of all human thought and endeavor. But because he had found a happiness that was totally unconditioned, attained only through abandoning his identity as a being of any sort, either self or Brahman, he was able to look past the supposed goodness of the act of eating to see the suffering and the stress that inevitably involved, okay? And I mean, you know, people probably wonder, well, what's involved? Why should there be stress in eating? It could be, we could go on and on and on. What if you can't find no food? Okay, what if you find it, then you got to cook it. What if you don't have nothing to heat it up? What, you know, is it a vegetable? Can you eat that? You can just go, you know, you can go on and on and on just from one to back, forth, this, that. One of the marks of Nibbana as the superior goal was that it freed one from the need to feed, at the same time freeing other beings from being subject to one's feeding. And feeding, I would love to hear somebody's interpretation. But feeding to me can also be in other ways too, not just in, you know, eating and ingesting. Feeding could be like, there's a lot of people that in the 21st century, you hear people say feeding off of someone's energy, you know. So, you know, we could listen to somebody talk and then we get energized or something, good or bad, however we're energized, you know. We could get revved up in a positive way or not. So I look at feeding, for me, is several things, not just one way of feeding. But anyway, let me finish up. At the same time, freeing other beings from being subject to one's feeding, because one's attachment to food derives from one's attachment to one's identity as a being. He would often find ways of calling the identity into question and encouraging his followers to do their best to abandon it. You know, it's a lot. You know, but I'm going to reread these texts over and over, and once I get to the end, then I'm going to start with the Buddhist texts. I'm going to continue because they have so many volumes of them. So I'm going to try to read, you know, I'm going to try to see how many volumes that you know, because I've heard there's lots, but at least I'm getting started somewhere. But I want to continue, you know, and then some of these texts I just want to rotate, and once I get to the end, I just want to keep rotating because there's always something to get out of it that you might not have got before. Have a good day. I'm going to leave it there.